Let's have some music in here, Boiler.
Sure thing.
Welcome to Axis of Action. I'm Darkseid, and joining me today is...
12 years a motherfucker, I guess, I don't know.
And Cave Johnson.
And today we're going to be talking about the works of director John Carpenter. A director who's had his ups and downs, and we're going to be discussing which films work, which don't, which are memorable, and which aren't, and when he lost his mind. And then if he regained it or not. Anyway, we're going to kind of just go right into it. By the way, along the way, I would ask what was the first John Carpenter film you saw, but when we get to it, we should just maybe we should just mention whether this was the first one we saw or not.
Yeah.
Just so we can get into it. Okay, so immediately going into his filmography, the first film we have is a little film called Dark Star from 1974.
It is the future. Mankind has conquered the stars. He moves out to the endless interstellar reaches of the universe. An advanced exploration corps, a new breed of pioneer, must seek out unstable planets and destroy them.
Hyperdrive sequence begun. Hit it, Pinback.
You are on the mission of the 21st Century Planet Smashers, Dark Star. 20 years in space, 1 million light years from Earth. Their job is to clear a path for the colonization of space.
Back home in Malibu. I used to surf a lot, Talby. I used to be a great surfer.
Travel in an infinite universe, with mind-melting excitement from beyond the stars.
Computer to bomb number 20. Return to the bomb bay immediately.
But I have received the operational signal.
Hello, Bob. Are you with me?
I wish I had more time.
Why don't you have more time?
Because I must detonate. I must detonate.
Commander Powell. Commander Powell, this is Doolittle. Can you hear me?
Man, what happened, man?
Hey, Bob.
Confirm. Power drive sequence activated. Roger, retracted. Lock all defensive systems.
Dark Star. They are not lost in space. They are loose.
This was a student film that John Carpenter co-wrote. Well, he directed it and co-wrote it with the late Dan O'Bannon, who's most well known for creating the world of Alien. He wrote Alien along with other films such as the Roy Scheider movie Blue Thunder, and he wrote and directed Return of the Living Dead. Sadly passed away in 2009. And this film was made while both Carpenter and O'Bannon were at UCLA. And the story behind this little science fiction dark comedy was that it was a student film, and then through additional funding from some person, it got released as a feature film. So they had to shoot additional footage to get to full length. And essentially what Dan O'Bannon says about Dark Star in the Alien documentary is that in the end what came out of it was the most impressive student film but the least impressive feature film. Now, Gabe, you said you didn't see Dark Star.
Yeah, that one I've not taken the time to find. So.
Oh, okay. Let me see. I've seen most of it. I'm sorry. It wasn't UCLA. It was University of Southern California. So.
Oh.
So it's USC. Okay. Let's see. Dark Star. Dark Star is a very odd film. But for a student film, it's extremely well made. I mean, O'Bannon actually, along with I think Nick Castle. Nick Castle worked on this as well, and that name will crop up from time to time in Carpenter's work as a collaborator. O'Bannon did the special effects for this movie, and they're really good. It's definitely it's a very impressive movie if you look at this was a student film. The story of Dark Star is that it's a crew about. Let's see how big the crew is. Not that it matters. A crew about four. Why did I say 8? About 4 people. Dan O'Bannon himself playing one of the characters, Lieutenant Pinback, are all crew members on this ship called Dark Star. This takes place in the far future of where the colonization of space is going on. Dark Star is on a 6-year mission to different quadrants of the galaxy to seek out unstable planets and destroy them. So essentially they find an unstable planet, they drop a bomb on it, and then they move on. And Dark Star is sort of told in vignettes, in a way. The long-running gag is that everything on the ship is going wrong. And it's sort of like, it's parts parody of like 2001, and parts parody of like Easy Rider, kind of like it kind of makes fun of the kind of hippie dippy kind of stuff that was going out in like the late 60s and early 70s. You know, there's one character who's a surfer, and there's another guy who keeps talking about going on and on about like, you know, space is beautiful, man. I just want to go out there in the cosmos and be one with them. And
Awesome.
There's 2 memorable parts of the movie for me. The first one is there's a scene where O'Bannon his character, Pinback, has to go feed the alien, which he brought on board because he felt it needed a mascot. And I'm not kidding. The alien is literally a painted beach ball with claws. That's voiced by Nick Castle. He's making kind of like sounds. And it's actually a pretty funny sequence. And it actually leads to a suspenseful sequence because he finds himself in an elevator shaft on a ledge, and the elevator is moving up and down, and he's trying to avoid being crushed. And I think it was filmed in a hallway. I think they somehow made a hallway look like an elevator shaft. But it works. It's actually, it's funny, and then it gets really suspenseful as you're trying to watch this guy not either fall or get crushed by this elevator that's going up and down.
Attention. Central trunk elevator shaft is now activated. All personnel, please clear the area.
And the second bit, which was the second... I should just mention that they had a commander on the ship who died because his chair killed him. I guess the chair was like electronically controlled, and I guess it malfunctioned, and I guess it crushed him. So he died by a chair.
and real sorry to hear about the death of Commander Powell.
The second most memorable part of the movie
There was a week
is the
of
last
mourning
bit
here on Earth.
where one of the running things in the movie is that the bomb, they have a number of bombs, thinks it's ready for a bomb drop. So it's like the bomb goes, bomb 124, ready for drop, and the computer has to say, you've received false data. The ship is malfunctioning. Return to the bomb bay immediately. It's like, oh, all right, and the bomb goes back up. And then at the end, they near the end, going into the third act, they get to the planet which they need to destroy. They're getting ready they make these, okay, prepare the drop bombs. Like, arm yourself. Armed. But something goes wrong with the release catch. So the bomb is armed, primed for detonation, but they can't get it to drop. They can't get it to, the ship won't release the bomb. And they're frankly trying to tell the bomb to disarm and return to the bomb bay. And the bomb is adamant, saying, I received the bomb run orders. I'm going to go ahead and do it. And nothing they can say will make him go back in. So one of the crew members gets in a suit, goes outside, and has a philosophical discussion with it. It's very kind of reminds me of Douglas Adams in a way. Very kind of like, how do you know you exist? How do you know what your sensors are telling you is correct or not? And so it's this long philosophical discussion of basically he's trying to tell him, you don't know you actually exist.
Now, Bomb, consider this next question very carefully. What is your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
And you can only do it once, right?
That is correct.
And you wouldn't want to explode on the basis of false data, would you?
Of course not.
Well then, you've already admitted that you have no real proof of the existence of the outside universe.
Yes, well...
So you have no absolute proof that Sergeant Pinback ordered you to detonate.
I recall distinctly the detonation order. My memory is good on matters like these.
Of course you remember it, but all you're remembering is merely a series of sensory impulses which you now realize have no real definite connection with outside reality.
True. But since this is so, I have no proof that you are really telling me all this.
That's all beside the point. I mean, the concept is valid no matter where it originates. So if you detonate in
9 seconds...
You could be doing so on the basis of false data.
I have no proof it was false data.
You have no proof it was correct data.
I must think on this further.
But yeah, it's definitely a start, and it's definitely an impressive student film. The special effects were really good for the time. Remember, this was pre-Star Wars. Dark Star, definitely a movie worth checking out. I don't think some people may not like it because it's a very, very odd movie, but it's a very well made odd movie. And of course, Carpenter would move on to different things. O'Bannon would do variant work. He did graphic animation, graphic work for Star Wars, and he was involved in that mid to late 70s version of Dune that was going to be made by that weird guy. And
David Lynch?
No, that was the 80s version.
Oh.
Andrei Jablonski or...
Oh, yeah, Jodorowsky.
Yeah, that he was involved in that, and he said that was probably the worst experience of his life because it fell apart. It was a movie that never got made. It's this legendary movie that, it was going to star Orson Welles, and the music was going to be by Pink Floyd, and it never got made.
Damn.
And Dan O'Bannon was going to do the special effects and co-write it or something like that. And he said that was the worst experience of his life because he was looking forward to getting all this money, and then it fell apart, and he was broke.
A Chilean filmmaker named Alejandro Jodorowsky telephoned me from Paris. Was it Paris, France? Or Paris, Texas? No, Paris, France. He had made an art film called El Topo, which was very well received. And this man, over this transatlantic phone line, claimed that he had the backing and the rights to make a feature film of Dune.
And he loved Dan's work that he did on designing the special effects for Dark Star. And he knew he had to do it at a budget with some creative people. So he hired Dan to work on it, help him with the storyline and also with the special effects. And Dan went off within a few weeks. He went off to Paris and France and places and was working on the Dune project there for 6 months.
And I wasn't the only person there. He had gone to England and he had plucked up an artist who did covers for science fiction books named Christopher Foss. And for the first time, I saw somebody whose stuff I liked as much as Ron Cobb's stuff. He had another artist he wanted me to meet. He had seen this guy's work in a show that was in Paris at the time. Took me over to one of the really fancy hotels in Paris, not the one I was staying in, where this artist named Hans Rudi Giger was staying while his show was on display in Paris. Giger brings out this little tinfoil. He said, "Would you like some opium?" I said, "Why do you take that?" He said, "I am afraid of my visions." He said, "It's only your mind." He said, "That is what I'm afraid of." He brings out a book, art book, with his paintings in it. I started looking at this, and he and Alejandro go into a big discussion about Dune. I started looking at these paintings, and it took a minute for it to register what I was seeing, but what I was seeing seemed to be very disturbing.
Oft-told story of that was Dan, of course, working on the Jodorowsky Dune in Paris for a year or two, and it all collapsed, and he went home with no money and whatever it is, and slept on Ron Shustert's couch.
But of course, he hit gold when Fox wanted to produce Alien for him. So,
Aliens?
Alien. He wrote the first Alien movie. And that all came out of Dark Star, because he essentially said, "I want to make Dark Star, but make it a horror instead of a comedy." So
that's odd.
So now we move on. There actually is one movie that Carpenter didn't direct. He wrote it, and this is what led to Assault on Precinct 13. He contributed a screenplay. He sold a screenplay called The Eyes, which became The Eyes of Laura Mars, which was this movie starring Tommy Lee Jones and Faye Dunaway. And it was directed by Irvin Kershner. So he got like $20,000 for that screenplay, and that's what led him to move on to Assault on Precinct 13.
Her world, sensual, dazzling. His world, dangerous, violent. Drawn by a mystery, their lives converge. Faye Dunaway, Tommy Lee Jones, Eyes of Laura Mars. A thrilling vision of romance and terror. Rated R.
Freeze! This is the police. Drop your weapons and place your hands above your heads.
On Saturday, 6 members of the gang known as Street Thunder were ambushed by the police. On Sunday, the warlords of Street Thunder swore a blood oath to avenge their dead. For the gang called Street Thunder, it is a day of vengeance. It's war in the streets.
Jesus, come on. Come on, I'll give you my money. Just don't hurt me, please. Please.
It's terror in the night. It's the most shattering assault on a police station in history. Assault on Precinct 13.
This is a siege. It's a goddamn siege.
You're gonna stay here and hold until somebody comes, okay? We're in the middle of a city. Inside a police station.
What does that mean?
They're not afraid to die. Any of them. They want to rip us apart, no matter what it costs. It means to the death.
Precinct 13. Cut off. isolated in the middle of a city, as a human wave of street killers turns the night into a nightmare.
We got a war going on down here. We can't find the damn thing.
A white-hot night of hate. Assault on Precinct 13.
So, Assault on Precinct 13, I would say Assault is like the first brand or a staple John Carpenter movie. Because this was a movie where he's kind of showing the thing. It's all the themes that would come that would appear later on in his movies. It's, you know, he pays tributes to Howard Hawks. He pays tribute to westerns. It's essentially an urban western siege movie inspired by Howard Hawks' Rio Bravo. There's the anti-hero in the character of Napoleon Wilson.
Got a smoke on you?
You asked me before.
Well, I never got a definite answer.
I don't smoke.
That's a definite answer.
And you really see really just how John Carpenter could make a really grade A project. And this movie was basically like exploitation. It was like it was kind of like, even it was kind of marketed that way, this was an exploitation movie. But he made a grade A movie with a very low budget. But I think how Carpenter did it is that he knows what his limits are, and he always manages to find a way around them. And of course, I'll mention how he does that later. Since you hadn't seen Dark Star, Cave, what can you chip in on Assault on Precinct 13?
The movie kicks every kind of ass that there is. It's totally awesome. Just stellar. Like, okay, so let me collect my thoughts a little bit more. But I mean, that'd be my first thing is go see it. You know, if you have any love for,
don't see the remake.
Well, yeah, I haven't bothered with the remake, but but if you have any love for like exploitation films, if you love Quentin Tarantino's stuff, if you love, you know, anything that is like a good use of sort of a bottle, you know, kind of situation where, you know, everybody's in kind of one place and they're sort of trying to figure something out. Just fantastic in every way.
Give me a gun! They're coming down the hall! I can't hold it! Shit!
Yeah, just it's really great about building tension just throughout the entire film. Like, you get this, like everything. Like, it begins actually kind of on, like he's really playing with a lot of different shades of tone before it kind of settles into what the kind of the main thrust of the story is. And so, like, at the beginning of the film, you know, he's got a lot of stuff going on where it looks almost like he's got sort of a cinema verite kind of thing going on, where it's almost like he's following like news reports, and you see all these different police actions and gang activity and kind of clashes with the police going on in different neighborhoods. It's a lot of urban chaos kind of stuff happening, and then you enter in, you know, the Napoleon's character. And you have kind of this sort of prison film sort of thing where you've got the man, you know, who's sort of saying, you know, he's kind of trying to get down Napoleon, and like Napoleon's sort of this
like Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Cool Hand Luke sort of thing, you know, with the tension between the man and sort of the more rebel figure. And and then you have this sort of beleaguered, police station where, they feel just sort of desperate, and they don't really know, how they're going to do their jobs, which they want to do. They're not trying to, abuse their power or anything. They just want to, be good police, and then you have, just all these elements kind of coming together in this one particular precinct, and just the clash. It's just that perfect storm of all these elements that you totally buy into that's going on. The urban unrest in the city, the tension between people and the cops, and then a legitimate situation where there's a gang that's gone too far and has just there's unwanted, just wanton violence against innocent people, so it's this whole clash of ideals, and then this chance for honor to sort of show through, that Western element, in this really just tense and awful sort of situation. It's solid, just the entire way through. It's like 90 minutes of just like wonderful pulse pounding tension, and it's fabulous. I love it.
Really tight editing.
Yeah.
And I could comment. I'll comment later on the editing of some of his movies, like In the Mouth of Madness, which I had problems with.
Sure.
To sort of explain what the plot of Assault on Precinct 13 is to anyone who's never seen the movie, and you can get quite a bit of what Cave said, is that the main focus is on this street gang called Street Thunder, which is made out of it's a gang. We never know how big it is, and that's actually we'll play into later. We do know that it's made up of multiple ethnicities, and the movie begins with them being ambushed by the police, and we hear through a news report that they stole weapons from a army supply. So they have automatic weapons, and most importantly, they have weapons with silencers on them, which again will play into when they make their assault on, oddly enough, not Precinct 13, Precinct 9, Division 13.
Oh, and why this?
Because it was originally called The Siege, and then the movie companies said, Assault on Precinct 13, that's a better title. So Kermer said, all right, so it's Assault on Precinct 13.
Oh, by the way, what was the name of the gang again?
Street Thunder.
That is a great fucking name for a street gang.
And so, and this, let me first talk about how Street Thunder is portrayed in this movie. They never speak. The one gang member says one line, and that's in the beginning, where they hear the news report that their comrades had gotten killed by the police, and he says the one word, cholo, and they flick open their knives, and they cut themselves, and they pour their blood into a jar. They're basically making a blood oath that now they're out to kill people to avenge their gang members which have been killed. And throughout the rest of the movie, they don't say a word.
What does cholo mean?
It's like street talk, slang. And later on, during the actual siege, one of the prisoners who's in the precinct house, they tell him about, that we got marked for something, and he's like, wait, no one's why don't you tell me about the cholo? I'm like, you know about that? And he's like, yeah, I was in prison with one of those crazy bastards, implying one of the members of Street Thunder. It means they don't care if they have to die or not. They want to come in here and rip us apart. It basically means to the death.
Jeez.
And it's and also I should mention the lead guy who he's in it for a little bit is an actor named Frank Doubleday, who later would become Romero in Escape from New York. He goes from a silent killer to a kind of a lunatic. He's the guy with the very high-pitched voice in Escape from New York. Don't trust me, when you see him, the guy. You're not supposed to be in here, brain. But he doesn't talk in this one. But he's definitely creepy. The suspense is like really up in this movie, and I think part of the reason, and I'm trying to gather my thoughts. The reason why Street Thunder works so well is that they don't talk, and that we don't get things from their perspective in the beginning. But when the assault begins, we never cut away. The camera always stays inside the police station. There's no, cutaways to like the gang members talking about what they're going to do. There's no gang member who says, I don't like this. This is what we're doing isn't right. And there's none of that. We don't humanize. Carpenter does not make the gang members humans. And whenever we always see what the characters in the police station see. They look out the window and they see figures running in the dark. There's only like one street light. It's very dim, and what we see is like glimpses of guys in bushes.
A lot of silhouettes.
A lot of silhouettes.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about before, of how Carpenter gets around his limitations. He probably knew he couldn't afford many extras, so there's not, they probably just use the same guys.
It's like 20 guys, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So he uses the darkness and to cover, and you just see like glimpses of them. So you never get the idea of how many there are outside the police station. And
Question.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Question. Why doesn't John Carpenter try to humanize one of them?
What's the... Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Cave. You probably can answer this better than I can.
Well, I mean, basically, it's a... essentially, for the length of the film, I think if you think about it in kind of a pragmatic manner, it's essentially like the main characters that you want to get to know are all inside the station, and it's really more this kind of like menacing, sort of amorphous threat. That the gang represents, that it could be like anybody out there. They have no idea, who's, on their side and who's not. They just know that the gang is coming for them. And, that kind of thing, it's in a certain sense, we talk about, these kinds of siege movies. It's like I wonder, in terms of like Dawn of the Dead, whether, Romero might have, been paying attention to how, Carpenter kind of sets this sort of thing up, where you have this kind of more of a, kind of a menacing, nameless threat. And in terms of the Western aspect, that was frequently how like Indians would be portrayed, where there wouldn't be this human element. They would be this kind of silent, sort of menacing, threat that could pop up anywhere, sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies which it reminds me of. Obviously, I've never seen Rio Bravo, which is essentially this movie is a remake of. All I know is it's John Wayne protecting a police station from bandits.
Yeah.
There's a lot of elements of Night of the Living Dead in it as well. And also, another movie which it's a great siege movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Zulu.
Oh, yeah.
And
Zulu.
Is it about African tribes?
Yeah, it's African tribes versus British troops.
Oh, you mean it? That sounds more like a war movie.
It is.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. Who made it?
I can't remember the director's name, but I know that Michael Caine is in it.
Yeah, I'm kind of ashamed. Zulu is my grandfather's favorite movie, and it was a big inspiration for Peter Jackson when he made the Helm's Deep battle.
So, I better check it out then.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. The only thing I could say about Assault on Precinct 13 is I just mentioned I've never seen the remake. All I know it's in Detroit, and for some reason Detroit is in the middle of the forest. For some reason, and it's a snowmobile chase. It's some guy. The criminal. It's not Napoleon Wilson. It's I think it's Lawrence Fishburne, and it's essentially instead of a gang, it's like corrupt cops that want to kill this criminal because he's going to testify against him. because of course, you know, this criminal who's involved in this high-profile case, of course, drop him off at a precinct house which is closing.
But you see, the reason they changed that is because people realize cops are evil now. We got to appeal to them because.
Yeah. So, only thing else I can think of to say about Assault on Precinct 13 is, you know, the first in many Carpenter synthesizer scores, which are very effective.
Oh yeah, those synthesizers. I have no idea what they sound like. I can't remember.
Well, we'll put some clips of his music in here. We'll scatter it about. Just just type in Assault on Precinct 13 theme and you'll get it. So we'll move on now to. We should just mention that Assault on Precinct 13 did some pretty good business. I think it was a bigger hit in Europe than it was in America. But his next movie is it's pretty popular, I think. A little film called Halloween.
Yeah, it had some legs, you know.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a cult movie. It did some business.